Hello, hi, my name is Jared, aka Prosperity42, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Walkin and Talkin, wherein myself and some other Blizzard nerd are going to do a little bit of walking and a whole lot of talking. Joined again today by the dubious Whoop for another discussion. Hey, Whoop. There you are. Hello.
There I am. Hello.
It's been a week.
It's been a week
for WoW news. But yeah, we're not talking about news this week. We're talking about something kind of we're talking about a horse that has been beaten mercilessly.
It's been
by
an
everyone,
ongoing thing.
in the WoW community. We're talking about the new shiny of Battle for Azeroth, Azerite Armor. So
Azerite Armor.
So buckle up because this walk is gonna be a little brisk.
This one's gonna get a little bit hairy, probably.
You could say that. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get on walking and talking for y'all about Azerite Armor. And I gotta say, first and foremost, before we get into this discussion, if you haven't heard, which if you play WoW currently and don't know about Azerite Armor, what are you doing with your life?
Where you been? Where have you actually been?
Anyway, Azerite Armor is replacing set bonuses or set tier armor going forward in Battle for Azeroth. And legendaries. Which, I mean, it's not really replacing legendaries because legendary was something unique to Legion. Then you know, you get it.
Yeah.
Either way, so what? The first question that I want to bring up, or first like I guess topic, is what are the pros and what are the cons of replacing set bonuses with Azerite Armor? And I'll let you go first with your pros, and I'll give mine.
All right.
But go ahead.
I was gonna let you go first. All right, doing it live. Okay, so pros of Azerite Armor. I do have some. As we said at the beginning, this video is gonna get hairy. But there are some pros to Azerite Armor that I can think of. But they are kind of. You can tell that at least with mine, I'm kind of reaching here.
Uh-huh.
Spoiler, I don't like Azerite Armor a whole lot. But pros, I mean, when you think about it, a tier set of gear, what is that called? A set bonus set of gear.
Right.
Has 4+ pieces of gear. If you wanted to get the set bonus, you need 4. Usually there's not only 4, there might be 5 or 6 actual pieces, but the bonus only goes up to 4. Not counting, much less if you want to, which some classes have done from raid tier to raid tier, is use like a 2-piece, 4-piece situation, like 2-piece from a previous tier and 4-piece of the new tier, or vice versa, or whatever.
Right.
So you have especially if you're doing that, you have a bunch of gear pieces that are locked in place that you can't replace because they're providing the set bonus. With Azerite gear, that is bypassed because and we'll touch on this a little bit in later, I'm sure, but on the surface there are 3 pieces of Azerite gear. You got your head, your chest, and your shoulders, and I guess the neck piece as well, that are more or less going to be quote-unquote locked in to a much lesser degree that tier sets were even to that point. So it's a little bit better there. You're going to have more flexibility. If you get, say, like a Titan forged chest piece in Legion, but you need your chest piece because it's a tier chest to keep your set bonus, then you're not going to be able to use it.
Right.
But with Azerite gear, that
essentially,
is kind of
essentially we're dropping down to 3 pieces that are locked. Well, technically we have 4 pieces that are locked in because the neck piece, but that's the only like static thing is your neck piece. And then you have 3 people. You have 3 pieces of gear on top of that neck piece that are going to be interchangeable with other pieces from dungeon content, world content, raid content, PvP, everything will have some form of Azerite gear.
That's the thing with it too. They are interchangeable. You're with a set bonus. Even just for comparison's sake, say a set bonus was 3 pieces. You have your head, chest, and shoulders. Even with it was a set bonus, you have to have all 3 of those equipped. Right. With the Azerite gear, it's on an individual basis even. So, if you have it's your helm, shoulders, and chest don't have any interactability between them. They're just they're there, and, you'll use them. But as far as pros, I mean, that's kind of it. And it's quickly overshadowed by the fact that you're going to have to collect a ton of these things.
Right.
At least that's the way that they're intending it to be played, which is, because each Azerite piece of gear has different traits on it that you might want to use for different specs and different situations and all kinds of stuff. And that's the way they intend you to do it, is to just collect all the pieces of gear and swap them out accordingly.
Right. Well, my pro is that we will have more options. In theory, we'll have more options to explore, like different talent builds, different situational things, or some things that would be normally situational might become better depending on like what loadout of Azerite gear you're wearing. But in theory, it gives more room to play around with various builds and doesn't have everyone kind of like shoehorned into like one specific thing, because in theory we will have multiple options for multiple different every tier will have like one specific set that will have like a very specific group of bonuses that we'll be able to pick from in our Azerite gear. But those specific sets should grant a reasonable amount of give in. We went the complete wrong way, unless we're just gonna jump off here.
We're jumping.
We're jumping. Let's do it. Leroy Jinxing. Jenkins.
Don't hurt.
Leroy
just
Jenkins.
Just a little fall.
Full plate armor, NBD.
No,
anyways, so the only 2 pros that we see, and I think we're both in agreement with both of these pros, is that we're only going to have 3 pieces to look for instead of a possible 6, and that we will have a little bit more room to play with.
And another thing with it too, because we assume that, because we're going to be raiding, but you can't assume that you're going to have access to all the pieces. Say there's 3 helms in a raid, and one of them is really good and the other 2 are just whatever. It's going to be like, at least for me, I think for both of us, because we didn't, in Legion, neither of us were the type of player that had all the legendaries, available to us. We kind of just had to work with what we were given. If you get lucky and get Abyss legendary, fine. It's going to be the same way with these. If you get lucky and get your Abyss one, great. If not, just slap on what you got and work with what you have, which is like what you were saying about, if the Abyss Azerite helm suggests a talent build A, we'll call it, and the non-Abyss helm suggests it doesn't lock you into that, then
quick note, if for the uninitiated, Biss is best in slot. So
Biss.
Yeah, if you hear Biss going forward, that's what we're referencing. But anyway, continue.
But yeah, it's just, if Biss Azerite helm suggests a certain talent build,
we should get a little jog going here. Okay.
I don't jog. I jump.
Just leap. Only
I'm just gonna leap. Anyway, but that's my I guess pro number 2 is that depending on what you're given, you might be suggested to have different talent builds.
Right.
But that's when we'll get into this in the future as well, yet to be seen.
Right. Well, onto the cons, because there's, as I put here, where to begin. We have, I'm also saying this is a con. It's a pro and a con, but we have 3 mandatory pieces from raid content with no variance on stats, and ultimately we'll only have 3 choices to be, chosen from, and which choice will be the best is to be determined. But we're not gonna have any say in like what the best option is, because there will be inevitably a best option for every single piece,
Right.
And it's only gonna get worse as the expansion rolls out if they don't make any changes to the Azerite system, because we don't even know what the Azerite system is gonna look like for raiding specifically. Anyway, we just don't know. There's not enough information.
And with but even on mounting up, didn't want to mount up. Even with the questing pieces and the dungeon pieces, the traits on there are not totally insignificant.
Yeah.
They do things that they might not be super interesting, but they can yield like a lot more damage if you're a DPS or whatever it is,
and a lot more mitigation if you're a tank.
Right. So I can only imagine that the raid pieces will follow suit, but to a higher degree. If I was to predict what the raid pieces are going to be, I would put my money in the hat of they're going to be things that kind of activate when you're in a group, kind of like with the Pantheon trinkets or whatever, where if you have multiple of them in your raid group and they all proc, then they'll do something like that, just to make the raid Azerite traits different from, say, the dungeon or questing traits or whatever, instead of just providing a direct increase. But again, we don't know that.
Because we literally don't know. We have no Azerite gear in the beta to look at from the raids. It just doesn't exist. And that's I think probably the biggest con right now, is that we just don't know anything about it. We don't know what we're getting ourselves into with this system, because the system doesn't work. Also, didn't think this through, but I had to unhide my UI real quick.
This show is done live, people. It is done.
No post-production period. It's just
one take.
We shoot it one take and slap it into YouTube, and that's
and
about
with
it.
the more when I'm looking at it on paper and I'm trying to think of, like we're just talking about pros and cons, it seems like there are a lot more cons than there are pros, and that is still kind of the case. But the more I'm kind of thinking about it, and this is maybe will come up later on as well, if you don't think about it so hard and you just kind of think about it in the terms of use what you're given, and if you happen to get the best thing, sure, but if you don't, just slot whatever you want, and
and that'll work.
It comes down to collecting, because the maximum like pieces you can collect if you just have 3 specs is, you'll collect, maybe 2 or 3 for each, 2 or 3 helms, shoulders, and chests for each spec. But that's going to happen over the course of the expansion.
Right.
It's not like as soon as you hit 120, you're going to have these options and you have to pick what you want and all this kind of stuff. It's going to come gradually.
But that's also another con that I would say, is that in the current system, we don't have enough information to say that it's not going to be completely and totally necessary to have like 2 or 3 sets of gear per specialization, not per class, not per character, per specialization. Just
and that's
because
always something
we don't know what we're gonna have. We don't know what we're gonna have to deal with, because
and we won't until we get in there and see it, whenever the expansion hits and we're raiding and we're seeing what's happening there. but there are, and I'm the, they're kind of, when it comes to gear sets and gear collecting, there's people that like to do it a whole lot and people that hate it. There's not really a gray area.
Yeah.
I've always been part of the latter, really. I just want to have a set of gear that works and put it on and make do with what I've got, because I simply just don't play enough to collect enough gear to have a whole set of gear for,
and for people with alts, that's almost unheard of, because they don't have the time to go and collect multiple sets of gear for multiple different characters, because they've got, in most cases, at least the people that I know that multi-class, like I don't know a whole lot of people that have a max level of every class and maintain a max level of every class through every expansion. But what I do know are people that have they have like 3 or 4 characters that they definitely work on at the very least throughout every expansion, and I'm one of them. I have multiple characters because I like one week I'll like the paladin, or 1 month I'll like the paladin, and the next month I'll like shaman, and the next month I'll like mage, and I haven't ever had a mage at max level, but I'll try to level 1, and but I mean that's beside the point. But either way, it's not looking good for people with alts, and that brings me to my next point. In order to combat this issue that they have, or that they've rightfully foreseen with Azerite gear, and people that have multiple characters that they maintain throughout an expansion, they made a change within the last couple of builds that went live on the beta. They made a change to where collecting Azerite power, or I guess artifact power, as they changed it a couple months ago. The change that they made was so that you didn't have to farm an insane amount in order to get to a comfortable level where you're able to have like multiple choices unlocked on your Azerite gear as you got them. Like it like kind of was a little bit difficult for a little while, and then like once you got to like rank 20 or something like that, it just like exponentially increased to where it just became something you didn't have to worry about, because you were just gonna be like gaining levels like crazy from that point on. But that begs the question: is it too trivial to warrant having it in the first place?
Well, I mean, it's the two kind of sides of this point are before they changed the rate at which the levels accumulate, right? It was a cases of, if your neck piece is level 5, say, and you go into a dungeon and you get a new piece of gear that's a higher item level, it's an upgrade, you want to put it on, that first trait might become available at level 10. So it's like you don't even have access to that as soon as you get it. And it creates the problem of, the woefully uneducated slapping that on with, it just is item level, primary stat, and nothing else, because they don't have the trait on there. You know what I mean? So it creates that problem, and like you said, to combat that, they made it so that you can accumulate the levels much faster. But then at that point,
what's the point?
What's the point? If you're getting them so fast, why not just make the artifacts, or not the artifact, the Azerite gear pieces come with the all the traits unlocked, and you can fully spec out the piece as soon as you get it, and maybe have the Heart of Azerite levels do something. This is, if I were Blizz, this is their fix to everything. Maybe make the Heart of Azerite Heart of Azeroth levels just increase the item level fluidly of your Azerite pieces. So say at Heart of Azeroth level 0, you get like a helm that's like 300 or whatever it is.
And we have kind of a, sorry to interrupt you, but we have kind of an issue, like from a player perspective, and then from Blizzard's perspective with design, like
Right.
we have like conflicting things going on, because they want a system that rewards people for long time play. They want a system in place to where you know that you can log in, do something, and know that you're going to get some reward for that activity that doesn't feel meaningless or lose its meaning over an extended period of time.
That's
And-
the artifact power that they've carried forward from Legion. Is
Exactly.
that, that's the reward, the catch-all reward for doing anything that will always be relevant.
And if
is
they make
artifact power.
if they make artifact power irrelevant, if they trivialize it completely, take it out of the game, like do away with the meaning of Azerite or artifact power. Sorry, they've made too many changes in the last couple of weeks. If they trivialize it, there's no point to it.
Right.
There's literally no reason to have it in the game, but they know that there has to be something there. Like if they do what you suggested and take Azerite or artifact power completely out, and then or leave it in and just make it scale the item level of the Azerite gear that you have based on whatever level your Heart of Azerite is, then it will cap. There will be a hard cap for it.
Yeah,
It will not proceed past a certain point, and once, like, it'll incentivize people to grind out to that point, and then you'll also have another problem for people that play alts excessively. Gonna do a little folly fall here. If you have a system like that that you grind out to a max point, and that's it, then the people with alts will feel like they have to do that grind
Right.
on every character that they have, and then they won't be optimal on that character until they reach that
grind. Right. And if they did it like that, where they they just make the Heart of Azerite, or Heart of Azeroth scale the item level of things, they would have a cap on it, like per patch cycle, right?
Sure.
For the first raid tier, it would be a cap of X, and then when the new raid tier comes out with higher item level stuff, they would increase that cap to Y, and you would start the grind all over again. But like you said, that if they put a cap on it, that means there's an end to it. And if you grind that out right away for the whole duration of that patch cycle, it would be all artifact power rewards would be completely irrelevant to you. And
Right.
when I say all artifact rewards, that's the whole game. That's not just bosses. That's not just whatever. I mean, world quests are still in. Dungeons drop it. Raids drop it.
But and this might be a question for another video. But like, if we're not incentivized to go and look for pieces of some item somewhere out in the world to incrementally increase our power, other than just the gear that we get from raiding and dungeons and the mythic plus chests and all this other stuff, why have world quests in the first place?
Yeah.
Like,
and,
what's the point to that content? Like,
Right.
you see the difficulty in this like issue. Like, there isn't an easy answer to this
Because
problem.
the Azerite gear and the artifact power, all of this problem bleeds into every other system in the game: quests, dungeons, raids, PvP, rewards, everything. Which is kind of like what I said before. The Blizzard's catch-all has been item level.
Right.
If something is causing a problem, just make it item level and call it good. Which, honestly, and we haven't talked about this a whole lot in any of our videos, but I'm a fan of item level. I want item level to actually mean the piece is better, and just to put it on. Like, I'm for that mindset. They can't nail it down properly, but I like that concept.
Right.
So if they did do something like that, where artifact power just increases, if your Heart of Azeroth level just increases your item level, and all the traits are available to you, that means the grind is still there because you can grind out, item levels through your neck piece.
Sure.
And always be searching for that, even if it's just one. One Heart of Azeroth level equals one item level. It would still be something to do. That way, when you do get you do get an Azerite piece, you don't have to see if you need to grind more for it. It's just automatically available. You can see how it fits in with your other pieces, and if you want to keep it and collect it for an AoE set or another spec or whatever it is, I think that would work out better.
I agree, but yeah, it's difficult, and part of me, like hard. The tinfoil hat part of me, really thinks that they're trying to play the long game here and then use this system to show us how absolutely restricting having customization, like quote unquote customization options through gear that you get in dungeons and whatever, like having those options available. Where are we going here?
There's a little path here that goes up.
Oh, okay, I see it. But anyway, back to my point. The part of me that thinks that this is them trying to make us look at the gear system in the form that they're introducing in Battle for Azeroth and past versions of this, which has historically been set bonuses. They want us to look at that critically and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be getting these like spec changing pieces of gear, and maybe we should let them build a design space that allows them to say, hey, you're going to get some power through the gear that you're getting in raids and dungeons and PvP and all this other stuff, but all of that will contribute to item level and nothing else. Everything customization wise for your character is going to come from your talents, and maybe a different system that they put into place that has nothing to do with talents, nothing to do with gear, nothing to do with any of this other crap that we've been dealing with for the last 13 years. What they could have done,
and this is something that you and I have talked about off air ad nauseum for so long. But the whole idea of Azerite traits and even the artifact from Legion, it's a good idea, but it only lasts for that expansion. So especially after Legion, for BFA, they had the perfect opportunity to implement a whole system that's, like you said, not tied to any piece of gear or anything, that essentially does what artifacts were doing, something like a Paragon leveling system or whatever you want to call it, where you earn XP or artifact power, whatever it is, after you hit the level cap, and you have access to another tree of things, traits, or whatever you want to call it. They had a perfect opportunity to do that, but they did it with the Azerite Armor instead. So we're working with what we got. But and something else that I was just thinking about, just briefly before we move on, is because we're looking at the very beginning of the Azerite Armor system. At the beginning of the expansion, comparing it to the artifact system at the end of Legion. Right. Think about the artifact system at the beginning of Legion. It was totally different than what we know it today. Because it actually was a grind to get your next trade and all that kind of stuff. So I fully expect that the feel and the vibe and just the general opinion of Azerite Armor is going to change drastically throughout the expansion. It's going to be completely different by 8.1 even, I would predict.
Yeah, and I have to agree. But that leads me to the next point of is there a way for Azerite Armor to promote diversity in talent choices and in like what secondary stats you want? Is there a way for Azerite to work with that system?
I mean, there is, but it involves kind of reimagining what the traits themselves do.
Right.
Because if you get a piece of gear,
Right.
I'm trying to remember something from the beta that would make a good example. So well, I'll start this way. If the Azerite gear has traits on it that affect specific talent choices, then that's gone too far, because then that pigeonholes you into picking that talent. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, if I get an Azerite trait that, using Legion talents, that makes Bladestorm for Fury really good, then I have to pick Bladestorm as the last talent, and that's it. And I don't have the other two options cut away. It's like it's a cool Azerite trait, but takes away those options of the other talents to make them even more insignificant of a choice. But if you have Azerite traits that say buff the damage of like some baseline ability, and you have a talent that increases the effectiveness of that ability again, then you can build on them. It's not a hard choice. But again, and I keep coming back to this, we don't know what those traits are going to be.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine how to kind of fix it, because we simply don't know what it's going to be like. And until we do, it's going to be really hard to think of a fix for it, because we're predicting there's going to be a problem, right? But we don't know what those traits are going to be, as we've seen before.
And as Blizzard has seen from their current implementation of Azerite gear, they know,
you can tell
they
they're backpedaling.
absolutely know that there are huge issues with it. There's massive issues with it, but they don't have the ability to let us test everything with regard to Azerite gear. We don't have that luxury, because they haven't put it in the game, and they don't have a way to test that kind of stuff without having massive backlash on it, because guess what? We're not rating. We're not rating in the beta. No one's rating in the beta. And the people that they do let rate in the beta, they didn't even let them copy characters over for it. They just said, hey, here's some level 120 characters, go just knock yourself out. And they just gave them basically rating greens.
Yeah, I mean, and that's rating greens. I mean, that's a good way to put it. Because they scaled up, this is going to be a tricky terrain, because they just scaled up all the item level and secondary stats of all the people that were in those raids, but that doesn't include what the raid traits are going to be. They weren't able to test that. Some of them, had, because you could contest the dungeons, and all the dungeons have Azerite gear and stuff as well. So that's a little bit weird, but that's beside the point, because like I said, we still just need to. We don't know what those traits are going to have on them, because they could be super significant, or they could not be super significant. But you can tell that they are backpedaling. They've made changes to what their original, and like at this point, I'd love to see what their original design intent for Azerite armor and stuff was before it was even implemented, and compare it to what we have now, just to see, how it's changed, because something about it didn't work internally. It didn't happen the way they expected it to, and now they're in this position where it's coming out in a month, and this whole system that was like pitched with the expansion as a replacement for artifacts is kind of not working. And they're trying to find a fix for it,
or if at the very least it's working for in-game, but what they're able to show us isn't working, and people are very up in arms about it, and
that's true too. What we're seeing is leveling stuff, dungeon stuff. It's not what we're gonna be, because when we were leveling in Legion, we didn't have legendaries running around.
No, and we had no idea. Like, we knew that we were gonna have them, and we knew vaguely that artifacts were going to be something that it not necessarily like fleshed out our specs for us, but something that rounded out the rough edges at the very least. And we didn't have legendaries, and we didn't have any idea how they were going to affect anything that we had. So if it's anything as world-breaking as legendaries were for people in Legion, then I have honestly, I have worries about the system and its longevity and how it's going to affect people in game, because if you have 3 pieces of gear coming from one raid that you have to have in order for your spec to work, that's not gonna fly.
Yeah.
That's not gonna fly for anyone. That's not gonna fly for Mythic Raiders, who are people that say you should be able to complete the content without the gear that comes out of the raid, because the raid's not intended for you to do with the raid gear that comes from it. The reward is the gear that comes from the raid. So you should be able to do it without that. But if our classes aren't functioning properly without the bonuses that we get from that Azerite gear coming from the raids, why are they doing the system?
And that's what, we kind of do know, like I said, I wonder what the original intent was, that we kind of do know that the original intent was for the Azerite Armor to fill out the holes in certain classes. Like the whole thing was, if you had a problem with the class, the response was the Azerite Armor will fix it. And then, but we haven't seen that. The Azerite traits are, it might be a certain, Frostbolt does 15% more damage or something. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't change the way the class plays. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't change anything about that. It might give you a significant DPS increase, and that's the thing too, a lot of people see, because, and this is kind of going into a different topic as well, but, people see that, oh, these traits are, in response to someone saying, oh, these traits are boring or they don't do anything, they might say, oh, but they give me a huge DPS increase, so that means they're fun. That means they're interactive. That means they're good. But, but that's just, some people see higher numbers and higher DPS or whatever as that. It doesn't matter.
They see it as a reward.
Well, I mean, it is a reward, but is it a reward when your class feels like garbage to play? And you were told that these traits are going to make it feel like not garbage, but all it does is give you a DPS increase. It's like, that's not fixing the same problem.
Right. It's like taking a red Sharpie to a potato and calling it an apple. Right.
Or like, and even, it's like, if you have a rotten apple that has a big brown spot in it and taking a red Sharpie and coloring it in and calling it a fresh apple. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that's
probably a better analogy, but
that's where I thought you were going to go, but you didn't. But anyway, that's what they're doing. And, I hate to think of it this way, but because there's already like murmurings going around that BFA is going to be like another WoD, where it's going to be a super short, like intermission expansion to lead up to a bigger one. I don't want that to be the case. I want it to be really good, but if they, and I, especially coming off the back of Legion, I don't think that's what they planned for BFA to be.
No.
But just the reaction to Artifact stuff, or Azerite stuff right now is so negative.
It's polarizing.
Just like, it's really polarizing.
Because there are a bunch of people that are just like, this is great, this is the best thing ever. But it's for the classes that got changes that made the class feel complete. And the rest of everyone, literally everyone else in the game, at least the people that are testing in beta, everyone else is just like, this is garbage. This is absolute garbage because my class feels like garbage. The spec that I want to play feels like garbage. I'm being forced to choose something that I don't want to do. And the only solace that I have in the future is that there might be some trait on some raid piece somewhere that will make it to where my class is now playable. But if that's the case, if that is the case, and some people don't get that solace until the last tier of the expansion, they're gonna hate the game. They're gonna hate it. It doesn't matter. Like, they're not gonna want to pick something else up. They're not gonna want to pick another class. They're not gonna want to pick a different spec. They want to play Fire Mage. They want Fire Mage to work. And
if it doesn't
for them, if it doesn't for them, then
too.
it's just completely you're lost,
With some of our other cons at the beginning about having to collect a ton of gear, if you are the kind of person that just wants to play a fire mage or just a fury warrior or just a whatever it is, you have no intention of changing your spec, or you have no reason to, then those cons are a little bit less for you. It might be actually kind of cool if you have been in a position where you only play, say, Fury Warrior for like the whole of your WoW experience, and now all of a sudden there are these new gear options that you can have that might actually seem really cool. But it's the players that are that they might be a swing tank for the raid group, or they might be a swing healer or something, and they have to change specs all the time. That's the ones that are gonna have to collect all the gear, and that's who it really affects.
Yeah. There's got to be a campfire near here somewhere, right?
We're going off road over
Okay.
here. There's a
Cool.
flight path in this direction.
Cool.
Ish.
So we are going a little bit long, but I do want to bring up one last thing, and that's why have this system in the first place? Why have powerful gear in the first place? Because here's the thing. The main draw to raiding, the main draw to PvP, well, not necessarily to PvP, but the main draw to any in-game content is you need to have some sort of reward aside from just completing the content.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no one's gonna wanna play it.
It's all about the loot,
It is all about the loot, and they have to have some reason for us to want to go after that loot. Here's the problem, and this is gonna segue into next week's topic, wherein we're going to tackle talents, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
With the talent changes they made in WoD, because they realized that they took away... Mop. They realized that they took away a lot of the customization options that are available to people, and they needed to fill that hole. And their first like idea to do that was with gear. Was making more meaningful set bonuses in the tier gear that was coming out of the raids, but the only thing that served to do was to put a band-aid on the class for one tier, and then they had to come up with a new band-aid to replace it with for the following tier.
And that's the thing, they like you said, they created this problem for themselves. Because the current talent system, they seem really into it. But it's the things that we lost from the old talent trees, and even just the old in WoD, like the Draenor passive perks or whatever, that filled some holes with it as well, but we lost those. It's just
the same thing with the artifact weapons that we have. That's literally the only thing that they did was fill in the holes and give us, something to placate us while putting in the rest of the class for us.
And that's their response to, because they knew that they couldn't just have BFA come out, we lose our artifacts and that's it. Because a lot of classes with the Legion reworks, because here's the thing, in Legion, they redesigned their classes, right? A lot of specs got major overhauls in the pursuit of quote-unquote class fantasy, right?
Right.
But they designed those classes with the artifacts in mind. So when you take that away, all of a sudden, those class redesigns are no longer relevant.
And that's why...
they're no longer new functioning classes,
right?
Because you took those away. So they had to find some kind of fix. Azerite Armor was that. It's not turning out to work, and now they're trying to scramble to find something that is going to work. And
now,
here we are a
if
month
you-
away from the release, seeing classes being completely redesigned.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
If you
it's
follow
just a
Wowhead
mess.
anywhere, then you know
wow.
exactly what is happening.
Yeah.
They literally, every build is seeing at least 1 or 2 class specializations completely overhauled.
And that's
like from
it's
the
such
bottom
a shame.
up.
Because it's such a, it makes my heart hurt, man. Because it's like a lot of the class design from Legion was really cool and really good.
It's fantastic. Some of
And
the best
they had
class
that
design they've ever had in the
opportunity.
game came in Legion.
Yeah, they had that opportunity in Legion to make baseline functioning awesome classes, but they didn't do that. They did it with the artifact in mind, and that's what made us in this problem now.
Yeah. And this might be, the answer to that problem of they're now going to fix that problem with the design changes they're making, that's
We'll have to
this
see
is-
how much.
this is
We'll have
what
to
they're
see how it
doing.
works in the
Okay.
long term.
There you go, on the other side of you real
Yeah,
quick.
whatever you're gonna do.
But yeah, that's we have
it's
yet to see anything.
It's a mess of a topic, because there's so many.
It's so
it just-
interwoven with literally
Yeah.
every other
everything
piece
in the
of
game.
the game.
It just, yeah.
Like, it's everything's segmented, but it's segmented together. It's like a long chain of Legos that are all like, they're different colors, but some like match up and some don't match up, but they all make the long Lego piece.
Yeah.
And they're taking little chunks of it out and trying to smush the rest of it back together and
Yeah.
make it work. And
I was gonna say it's like code. I mean, it's a video game. It literally is code.
yeah,
But it's like code, where if you have a wrong character in one spot, it can throw the whole thing off.
right.
And that's what we're seeing now, is where they had this vision for what it was going to be, and it didn't work out that way, and now they're trying to,
They messed up their syntax.
yeah. They're trying to fix it, and it's not. From what we're seeing, it's not working. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to see what it's like in the middle and the end of the expansion, or even just one patch down the line. You
Yeah.
know, like,
And
they're already saying that classes are going to be. There are some classes that are receiving major reworks in 8.1.
yeah,
Like what?
it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
because they're not happy with where it is right now. But if they made the sweeping changes to those classes right now, they would also
Yeah.
have to change so many other things, and that leads me to believe that we're going to see a major overhaul to the how, to the how. We're going to see a major change to how Azerite Armor works in 8.1.
Yeah.
But that's just my speculation and my tinfoil hattiness. But yeah, this is a very, very difficult topic to talk about, and it's a very difficult
Yeah.
topic for Blizzard surely to tackle. And anyone that thinks that this is as easy as just flipping a switch hasn't been paying attention.
Yeah, because I mean, just take a trip to any forums that are talking about WoW. It's just like, people are armchair devs all over the place, and they say, oh, it's just do this, that, and overnight it's fixed. But it's
not.
it's
not
a
that
hard
at
problem
all.
that they have. But even because I'm on Blizzard's side here. I
Yeah.
want them to make it work, and
Absolutely.
I have faith in what they've done. I like most things that they've done with the game in the past. I know they're going to make something work, but even from that point of view, I don't know what they're going to do, man.
Yeah, no one does, and I think
Yeah.
that's part of the magic for me right now. Because like the last 2 expansions, it hasn't been like me seeing, oh, this is something awesome we're gonna get. It's me like having the Christmas morning excitement of like, I have literally no idea what I could possibly be
Right.
opening, and it
Yeah.
might be the worst thing that I've ever received as a gift ever, but it also might be the best. And I think
Yeah.
that's what mentality we should have going into this, because Blizzard makes great games, period. We're not paid to
Yeah.
say that. We literally have just been playing
We'll accept it if
Blizzard.
you want to give it to us, though. I
Right.
mean- But
Right.
no, I mean, both of us have been lifetime Blizzard game
Right.
fanboys at the end of the day.
Right.
So,
and we just
I mean-
we just love playing their games because they're good, solid games, and
They're gonna
And I
make
have-
something that works.
I have faith.
but we just
I'll
have to
say
see what
that.
that is. Yeah.
So, but anyway, thank you for watching. But our feet and our jaws are very tired. So, see you next week when we walk and talk a little bit more. Thank you so much for watching, especially watching all the way through to the end of this video, because oh my goodness, was this a long one. We went way longer than I thought we were going to, and well, here we are. So if you like this, please hit subscribe below, and if you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, you can. It's prosperity_42, and I pretty much am on there all the time. So look for me there, hit me up. Let's talk World of Warcraft. See you next week.